live on two channels only right now. I can go on five. I have Facebook and LinkedIn and Twitch disabled. Only YouTube and Periscope, which is Twitter, right? So
Yeah.
thanks, Doug, for joining me on a short notice. We are testing the Restream.io guest capability. You're my second guest. You were going to be the first one, but needed responded earlier, so you was like we did quick, test. How are you doing?
I'm doing good. It seems like I'm getting a suntan from sitting behind these lights in my studio for hours at a time, day after day. So, but this is the only way we're hanging out with people. So after this call, I've got a Zoom call with some friends for Wine Club. So we're going to virtually visit and drink wine together.
Oh yeah. I heard that yesterday. You were live and you were talking about that one. Yeah, that's interesting. That's interesting. And Gary, we used to do that, like wine. I think he used to go live and drink wine
Yeah.
tasting live. Way back, he started that kind of stuff. Yeah, I like your studio, the way it's set up and the lights and all that. I need to learn a couple of things from you about lighting and all that stuff. Maybe some other time offline, I will pick your brain. So
Yeah,
you
anytime.
yeah. So you focus on the sales side of things. I have heard you talk about it totally, like a lot of different topics. So you help in the technical sales enablement, that kind of work. Is that true?
Yeah, so I host a marketing podcast,
Marketing.
which gives me a chance to meet the other smart marketing people and SaaS vendors that are in that space. But most of my clients I work with are venture capital guys. They're looking to raise money, so I help them raise money, and then if they invest in projects, I help them make sure the projects they invest in, those companies are able to
Mhm.
sell their goods and services. So because I understand the equity in the market side, they'll normally say, "Hey, look at this business plan. Does it make sense?" If they fund it, then they go, "Okay, we're funding you. You're going to hire this guy to make sure you sell your widget or your CBD or whatever the product is." So I work on the lead gen side.
In all markets, or you focus in North America?
Mostly North America. Most of my clients are US or offshore.
Oh, okay.
So, I've got clients in Europe, all throughout Europe as well.
And you work with incubators, or like just like on like.
Well, and sometimes
I-
individual investors. Sometimes
Mhm.
individual investors will, they'll be investing in a company and they want to see a return and the company's not performing. So they'll ask me to come in and see if I can assist them to draft up a strategy plan and then execute that, because obviously they want to see ROI at some point and the company needs to perform. And when the company performs, then they can see an exit.
Yeah. I don't know if you know this, but I have been involved with startups for a while now. I used to go to 500 startups demo days from my Rackspace days. We used to have a marketing deal with them. So
Yeah.
I was the adult supervision for this program there. So
Adult supervision. That's funny.
because all the kids were running the startup programs
Yeah. Yeah.
from Rackspace side. So I will go there and meet Dave, who started 500 startups and stuff like that. And then I got the bug from there. And when I left Oracle, I invested in an incubator in Berkeley.
Yeah.
So that incubator has taken about like 110 startups through that program so far. So it's interesting how that world works. And I'm a B2B guy normally, C-level kind of stuff. I talk to technologists, the CTOs, CIOs, and stuff like that. But I have this other parallel side of work which I do. And I was talking to John Furrier late last year, but like we don't know how to recycle failed startups. I think maybe at some point we can talk about that. Like I think there's a lot of IP buried in startups, and we know most of them fail, but they build IP to some extent, and then they just kind of disappear. We don't know what to do with that IP.
That's a
And
great idea. I worked with a startup that had a product that it was a health and wellness product, and it came out of the University of Tennessee, and it was a spirulina extract.
mhm.
And they came to us, and so we had a bunch of athletes that we know close to us test it, and what they noticed is immediately their knee joint pain and that stuff went away. And so I flew down to the university, and what the universities are good at doing is they're good at incubating ideas. So this company was a publicly traded company, and they had taken on the rights to this product. I thought this is going to be a great thing for people. And then I'm not knocking MLMs, but they moved it to MLM instead of traditional retail. And we had brought in a consultant and got them into 100 drugstores. So I went, you got 100 doors of retail. Why would you go that direction? And so your point, they blew it up.
Yeah.
Didn't work. Brilliant product, brilliant IP, developed by a university, American made, solves a huge need in the marketplace in nutraceuticals, and it's dead. Now it's sitting on a shelf someplace.
Yeah, yeah, startups fail for many reasons. Like B2B startups fail for different reasons than B2C, and there are some patterns we have seen over a couple of decades now. That what actually are the best practices, or what for when we talk about GTM, go to market, right, for B2C
Yeah.
versus B2B, and if you take a misstep there, it's very hard to recover from that. Actually, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, well, I get a lot of those startups coming on my podcast. So I've had a number of CRM startups, and they typically will hire a podcast booking agency or a PR agency, and then the PR agency will pitch me and say, "Hey, I've got this new startup." So I've been super encouraged, and my kind of thinking was, and it's not to pick on the bigger companies like the one that you'd worked with before, is I don't think I would want to be in the legacy space right now, because a lot of the new guys that are coming in are nimble and they can do a lot better job at integration because they don't have 5 million users of the product, and so
Yeah.
they're starting to bring in AI for listening to phone calls, reading emails, reading text, and starting to make some decisions. So yeah, I'm super encouraged to see a lot of these SaaS startups for sure.
Yeah, and then they get sucked in by the big vendors. They just suck them in, and then they lose their virginity. I call it, and they lose their purity. Like once a big vendor takes over, it's like, oh, you were
Yeah,
pure yesterday. What happened? Now you're Oracle. Now you're like Microsoft or something, right?
yeah.
So now you're IBM. It's
Well,
crazy
in
how
the early days, I'd use NetSuite.
oh
So
yeah,
there was the right. So
that's Oracle company.
yeah,
Oracle
yeah,
Larry funded that
yeah.
parallelly, knowing what we know.
And then I
So
used a tool for email called Pivotal Veracity, which was a super advanced tool that let me see deliverability of emails from other companies. So if Fast Company sent out a marketing piece for your fund, your incubator, I could actually tell the deliverability of wherever it landed. And then
right,
IBM bought it. So it's like, okay, so there goes the end of PV. The
yeah.
pricing went from $2,500 a month up to $10,000 a month. It's like, okay, that's not affordable. So
Yeah, actually, it's interesting how quickly they can take that IP and their boots on the ground. And they just start selling in a different way. Just then the culture gets kind of ruined in a way, and only few companies know how to assimilate the M&A, like especially the smaller players. Most of them mess them up. Yeah, great. Actually, it was just off the cuff, like non-prepared, no topic in mind. Thanks for joining me, Doug. Anything else you want to talk about
no,
before we
I
disperse?
just love the area where you are. I made a note here because when you told me whereabouts you're based, I learned of, and we mentioned Wine Club. I had learned of Nickel and Nickel wine when I was in San Jose. My,
Really?
my server, when I ordered a steak, said, "Here's the takeoff of the Camus family, their kids," and that's become a favorite wine. So that was as a result of a trip to the Silicon Valley.
Oh, that's awesome, man.
Yeah,
Napa is next to us, and Napa
yeah,
wines are famous, right?
yep.
So
Done a few tours down there. Yep.
that's awesome. And I mean, I was gonna say like, let's go to Napa, but we can't go right now. Anytime you are in this area, let me know. Yeah, we
Napa,
can make
Sonoma. There's a
Sonoma. Yeah.
great Ritz Carlton down there too. That's right on the
Oh
bay.
yeah, yeah, it's nice.
And I like them because again, I think they were serving nickel nickel. We walked in to check in. We had a business meeting in San Francisco, so we said let's go down a few days early and a few rounds of golf with some vendors. And we walk in and they're serving this wine. I'm going, that's a really nice wine. She goes, well, we'll help you with your reservation. Go take your time. I'll have a second glass of wine. We're getting me registered. This is all cool. So, yeah, it's a beautiful area.
Yeah, it's nice like your area, like BC. I love BC. I have a big like family there in Vancouver area in Surrey. I'm a Punjabi, a lot of Punjabis in Surrey. So yeah, half of Punjab is there. So I just love going there. Yeah, it's
Well,
nice
there you
there.
go. So when we're allowed to travel, you can drink wine in your town, and we can eat or drink whatever you like in our town.
Yeah, that's a deal.
Yeah, and let me know when you want to connect. Happy to walk you through the studio stuff. What I've got set up is just stupid simple. I wanted it to be simple so other people could replicate it
Hmm.
without having to take out a second mortgage.
Oh, cool, cool. I will pick your brain on that. Yeah, actually, I picked a mic and this M50 camera I'm using as a webcam now.
Yep.
So I had this over my monitor Logitech, and it was not that great. but Canon just released a software package which allows you to use this directly, like without having a Legato, card thingy, which is like $400 right now. It used to be like 200.
Yeah.
Now the price is
Yeah.
double
Yeah.
because of the.
Yeah. I mean, the things that you can't buy right now. So everyone solved the toilet paper problem. You've got toilet paper again, which
Yeah.
is good. You can't buy video cameras. You can't find laptops. And today, when we're in our CrossFit gym, you can't buy weights. So everybody that was
Oh
selling
yeah.
their old weight sets and exercise sets on Facebook Marketplace, they're gone.
Yeah, and it was fun. It was funny. Like we were talking about some other stuff on Twitter, and also like a couple of, offline talks. Like the Miracle Grow, company which makes the like it what do we call that, potting mix. Like when you do gardening, you need that mix,
Yep.
right?
Yep. Yep.
And that company's stock went like 40% higher in the last 2 months. There's a
Wow.
lot. I mean, these are the side effects of what we are going through. People are home and they are consuming certain things like more, right,
Yep.
than they used to.
And
I,
pet
yeah,
sales.
but
I'm in a
yeah.
mastermind with a bunch of guys in the US, and there's a
Hmm.
husband-wife team that specialize in ethical pet adoption. So they work with really select breeders that follow all the guidelines,
Hmm.
and their pet adoption rates are up, and they're really high end. So they sell like really extremely high end breeds. But we're talking like 7 figures a month.
Wow.
And I saw pet food sales were up like 300%. So you're right. So people are staying home. They can't go on a trip. So they're buying dogs, they're buying cats, they're gardening, they're exercising.
In the beginning, I was kind of baffled about the toilet paper. It's like people are still doing their business normally. But then one day, like I think New York Times or something, somebody that put a video about like why there's a shortage of toilet paper, and then they explained logically that we used to go to the restroom at work, right?
Yeah.
So now we go to a restroom at home, and at work the rolls are those big thingies. They don't look like the rolls at home, right? They're
Yeah, it's
more
big
industrial.
rolls of this really coarse brown paper. Yeah, work. nothing,
Not your,
nothing
not your,
comfortable. No pillows on those.
not your back friendly paper. But that clicked. So like now we're consuming more paper at home. So I said, oh, that makes sense. Yeah. Interesting times. Interesting times. Yeah. I
Absolutely.
mean, by the way, I'm an economics major, so I always take a look at supply chain and all that stuff, consumption patterns and all that stuff. Like it always kicks in my studies. So thanks, Doug, for
Hey,
joining me.
you bet. Thanks for inviting me. Good to see you again. I'm sure I'll see you online again soon.
Yeah, I will, and maybe at some point I can be your guest on your famous talk show.
Anytime, and on my podcast as well.
All right,
Right, I'm
cool.
looking for really sharp guys. I'm just launching a brand new podcast all around private equity investing, but in the marketing podcast. So let's get offline, have a conversation, and let's make sure we connect.
Okay, let me stop this, and then